To a World Series edition of Baseball Rivals Live. John Heyman and I here to answer any baseball questions that you may have. And we're going to welcome in some people in baseball who found themselves in the middle of some pretty heated rivalries. There'll be a different baseball guest every week. We got two great ones here tonight. Make sure to use the Fancred app. So if you're on the app, you can actually go in the top right corner. It'll bring you to a Fancred Live section. You'll be able to talk to our producer, ask any questions that you may have, join us during this broadcast here, which is so fun. Talk to some pretty cool people. Ask John Heyman a question. Why not? Or you can tweet us at our social handle or watch us live streaming at fancredsports.com/on-air. In addition, we got some great stories coming at you behind these rivalries. We're here to give you, the fans, the chance to come on live, ask us anything. So make sure to join us. Ask any questions that you have. Today, Shane Victorino will be joining us. I got to know Shane when he was a member of the Boston Red Sox, but also obviously with the Phillies for quite some time and a one-time Dodger. So I'm sure he has a lot to say about this World Series. And we have Dodgers World Series great Ron Cey. So it's going to be a fun show. Before that, John, your takeaways from the start of the World Series, game 1 and 2, overall picture, how do you think it's gone?
First of all, Jenny, congratulations and welcome back. It's great to have you. And, of course, congratulations. It's fantastic news. So good for you and Will. So far, the World Series, the Red Sox look fantastic. They won 108 games in the regular season. They rolled through the Yankees. They rolled through the Astros. Now 2-0 on the Dodgers. I think they're playing the three best teams other than themselves, and they're proving that the 108 wins were no fluke. I think a lot of us thought the Yankees might beat them. Then a lot of us, again wrong, thought the Astros might beat them. Did not happen. Boston has been by far the best team. I know there's a lot of analysis about Dave Roberts' moves and different things that the Dodgers could have done better. But my first comment is, so far, the Red Sox are proving to be the better team.
It'll be interesting to see how this series goes now that they are headed out to L.A., and we are excited to welcome in our first guest of the evening, Shane Victorino, the Flying Hawaiian, one of my absolute favorites for my years at the Boston Red Sox. Many, many fans out there.
Hey.
Also Philadelphia. Hi, Shane.
Here he is.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Parenthood's something special, that's for sure. I know you both.
That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah. So you were in Boston for the.
Yes, I went in for game 1. I got to go. Obviously sneak in there to watch game 1 and, to get the view from the outside looking in.
How was that?
It was definitely special. I think, as an athlete, you start understanding it. For me, I got a great appreciation and, the perspective of the game and how fast, unless you actually get there and understand it a little bit more. And for me, sitting there at night and just watching the game and, 5 years before that, prior to being there, it's just so real to understand how fans view and how fans' perspective, and for me, seeing some of the moves and going, oh, man, it looks so easy from up here. And then realizing, like, hey, you were out there. It's a little different. It doesn't look as simple as people think. But you get that, perspective when you get that view.
Hey, Shane, great shirt, by the way. Is that available? Is that available?
Not yet. I just started dabbling a little bit with, trying to find that next chapter and, finding a way to give back to my community back home. So, some of the ideas was, obviously making a little.
Okay, now Jenny asked me to analyze the first 2 games, and I gave a very simplistic response that the Red Sox are just better. I think you can do better than me. What did you see in those first 2 games that really stands out to you between the 2 teams?
I mean, John, my honest take, truthfully, is just, the game in itself has gone to this analytical that every step of the game is such an analytical move, in my opinion. It's like you can predict that, I can sit there all day long, but, and it's frustrating for me to try to find, but again, the game is evolving. I got involved as an older player looking at that perspective. And, I can give a perfect example. Last night, I said, Chris Taylor was first and second, nobody out. You're down 1 run. Yes, he drew the walk. Great. Manny gets it in. But I just think the game in itself is like, hey, turn around, square right here. Get a second and third. You score 1 run. I don't know. Analytics might say differently. Obviously, it worked out. Tied the game. But the perspective of the game has changed so much. It's hard for me to understand. And until I understand it, I'm really not going to make a judgment of what the game and how the game is played today.
I remember there was one night when we were in Boston and Will and I were out to dinner with David Ortiz, and he was saying, I am so thankful that I am not starting my career right now because the game has changed so much, and I don't think I would have nearly the amount of success that I had in today's game. Do you feel that at all when you're watching?
I mean, I almost agree 100% because it's an understanding that the game has but on the flip side, when you start talking to players, you start hearing that aspect, well, we get a lot of information, but we use it how we want. So,
yeah.
It's informational, but I'm looking beyond just the player itself. It's the way the game's being run. It's an analytical, hey, let's bring Wade Miley in so we can make an adjustment. And, I said that to my agent, John Boggs, this morning. We were talking about the game and talking about perspectives of the game. And I said, John, listen to me. I knew we had switch hitters at the top of my lineup, first and second, when I was in Philly. I knew where I was batting. I didn't have to come in and go, okay, where am I batting in the lineup? What do I have to focus on? Same thing in Boston. Jacoby was leading off. I was batting second. Petey was sitting behind me and Ortiz. I knew I had four great hitters, and all I had to do was execute within the game my job. My job was to get a guy to third base, get him in a position to score a run, and we'd keep one horse ahead of the carriage. And I think that's the perspective of the game right now. It's 3-2. It's not 1-1-1-1. And for me as a player, I hated a team that went 1-1-0-2-1. And next thing you know, it's now 6-4 in the fifth, and you're feeling that pressure rather than going, okay, let's go for the 4-run homer and make it, a one perspective. But again, I'm not trying to judge the game because I'm trying to understand it myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm just talking from what I did and my perspective. And I hope people respect my opinion that I did it. I won 2 World Series, not on the perspective of analytics, on the perspective of judgment, instinct. But again, learning the game. Not saying that players today aren't learning the game. There's so much information in that game. I think it's harder. And I think maybe that's what Dave was trying to get at. There's so much given to them that, to me, I'm frying my brain and just trying to look at all the things that are given to me and thrown on my plate.
Game has changed, no question about it. But the Boston Red Sox, 108 wins in the regular season, all through the Yankees. The Astros are up 2-0 now. If they end up winning this World Series, and I assume you played for both of these teams, but I'm assuming you're more a Red Sox than a Dodger at this point, so you're kind of probably rooting for the Red Sox.
Of course, man, you like putting those predicaments, but yes, I mean, obviously, I want a World Series in Boston.
Okay.
Boston strong is still part of me, and I was able to be a part of a special team at 13 and do special things with that team for that city, and so yes, that sits a little more in my heart. But I also go back to the Dodgers because it's hard. They gave me my chance as an 18-year-old kid from the little island of Maui to get an opportunity to show the world that someone from a little island in the middle of the ocean can succeed in the game of baseball if you put your mind and your heart and your hard work into it. So, but again, I got to lean with the fact that I do have one ring in one city. So,
very good. And what do you think if the Red Sox finish? By the way, Maui, absolutely beautiful. I didn't know anybody was actually from Maui, but congratulations that you are.
Thank you. I'm excited for the opportunity.
Where are the Red Sox?
It's funny, John. I wanted to get away from that public limelight. When I retired, I told my dad I want to go back to the island, be in Vegas, be away from being a public figure. And here goes my dad. But, the one thing that's resonated is me. My dad said this to me. He goes, son, I let you fulfill your dream. Will you help me fulfill my dream? So it means a lot to me that this is a dream of my dad's to become mayor. And hopefully on November 6th, it's a reality.
That's right. He's running for mayor of Maui, right? Is that
Maui? Yes. Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Is that an island or a city?
It's an island. So it actually consists of 3 islands. It's actually Molokai, Lanai, and Maui. It's considered Maui County.
So the mayor. And how's he doing? I know he's got a good campaign manager in you, but how
right? He did well the first round. Obviously, hey, with things, you got to keep your foot on the gas pedal. I told my dad until November 6th and the votes are in, you got to keep working hard. But at the end of the day, I'm blessed to have him at the dad that I've had and, the man that I've become and the baseball player that everybody got to see. And, the people that, hopefully a lot of people fell in love as a player was because of that man. So, I thank him for everything.
I think you owe a lot of your success to your fantastic nickname, the Flying Hawaiian, but your dad is named Mike, right?
Definitely. Thanks to those guys in New York that, I got to give them a little credit.
Is that who it was? New York? Okay.
It was a game against the Mets.
Very nice. Now, how about Mike? Does he have a nickname or no? He just Mike?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay. All right. Well, if he wins, he's the winner. That's
yes.
I love that. Jeremy in the comments said, Flying Hawaiian loved the 2013 season. That was special. So when you think about that season as a whole, what sticks out the most?
Obviously, I think it's in everybody's mind. There's no one perspective. I think it's, the Boston Marathon. I think that year changed a lot of perspective, not just for us as athletes, but, for a whole city, like Boston. People always ask, hey, winning championship in Philly, winning champ in Boston. To say, hey, both were great cities. Both have a special place in my heart. Obviously, it was about the world and how, the world was devastated with what had happened that day. And, you fast forward to what is going on in, just yesterday and today. I mean, you count your blessing each and every day, I think, Jenny and John. It's like that perspective of life, and you start understanding that. And, those are the things that you look back. And, in 2013, that sat very big with us. And I think that led us to the finish line.
That question reminded me that you played in the two toughest towns, supposedly. Amazing. And you won championships in both towns. Now you ended up winning in both towns. So maybe nobody was harsh or mean or anything. Maybe everybody loves you. But which town is tougher? You can settle that right now because you're a guy who played in both towns, won in both towns.
You love this tough question, don't you? I mean, I have a respect and a great respect for both cities. I mean, it's hard for me to understand, as I said, that perspective. I grew up in a little town, so having having one team that I loved and grew up watching, I didn't have that opportunity. So, sports was, I tell people it's people are born and raised around that, living in these big cities. I grew up on a little island in the middle of the ocean. I didn't have, every single team or the opportunity to have a team to fall in love with. Living in Vegas, we got the Golden Knights for hockey. So, my children are growing up around, professional sports. The Raiders are coming. So my perspective of how, fans view their love and their passion, I say this, both cities have a great amount of love and respect for their athletes. At the end of the day, you win, you're loved forever. I don't care what city you're in. And that's, for me, I cared about winning. I won in Philly, I'm loved there. I won in Boston, I'm loved there. It's not the perspective of some of the things like, I played with my heart. I played with my soul. I wanted to play that way. There was no other perspective. My parents taught me that as a little boy growing up on an island. Like, my brother told me this, play every game like it's your last. So to hear some of the things and the way the game's going and how guys perceive the game, and I don't want to be this guy, I don't want to be that guy. Like, all we ask for is heart and hustle, man. This is what this game has been built on. This is what the game should never change. And I think that's the part for me as an older player to watch. The hardest part is that the game has become somewhat of I say a mockery. Like, it's like, okay, what next move are these guys going to do? And, I hit the homer, how much higher am I going to, bat flip, or what, how much I'm going to come around and flex my muscle. Like, when I did those moments, I look back in my life and I go, those are like some of the biggest homers that I hit in my life. But again, when I made that thing, I also made sure that I respected the team at my interview at the end of the game and said, hey, whatever I did was the moment of the game. I apologize for whatever actions. I'm not trying to show you up. And get that perspective with the other player, veteran player, saying, bro, if I did that, I would be doing backflips. So when I go into my post-game interview, I know that other team is great and understands why I did the licking of my bat, or why am I flexing around third base, or why am I, coming in and pounding my chest and do what I did. It's because the moment and the magnitude of the game called for it. Play hard, and play the game right. And that's the part that, truthfully, John, is the hardest, and Jenny, for me to watch now. Is just, it's become this like, what am I going to one up the next guy? And it's like, it was never about that. I felt like just short time ago. But again, I'm trying to understand. So before I really make I got to understand and talk to players in today's game and see their perspective. I don't have their perspective yet.
Now, I know Jenny's got the next question, but I did want to comment on that. And I understand why it's hard for you to pick. You won in both places. You're beloved in both places. So it's hard for you to pick. But I'll tell you right now, as somebody who went to an Eagles game with my wife, and we're rooting for the Packers in the end zone, we didn't have pretty good seats. I can tell you that Philly fans are the toughest. I mean, it was pretty scary. I said nothing. I was afraid. I got to be honest. I was in fear for my life. My wife looked crazy. Big Packer fan, had a cheese head thing, and it was nuts. But I think
I hope she didn't wear Packer stuff.
A little bit calmer, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Did she wear Packers gear that day?
She wore a cheese head.
Oh my! She definitely. That was not a smart opinion. I mean, choice.
In the end zone too. So we weren't sitting among the hoi polloi. We were in a rough group there.
I feel
that's okay.
And I don't want to generalize, but I feel like Boston fans are very passionate. I mean, obviously, so are Phillies fans, but I would have to agree with you. I feel like there's maybe a little soft spot in Boston fans' hearts. Phillies fans scare me. Not gonna lie.
I've had multiple teammates of mine. In fact, you know one of them, Johnny Gomes, pretty well. And I remember one day when we first started playing together, we talked about the 08 World Series, and and all the years that he played in Philly. And he goes, Shane, you're glad you were on that side. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, bro, I was tetrified sometimes. And that's Johnny Gomes. When I look at Johnny Gomes, it's like no fear, like
right.
Like I don't care. I'll stand up to the world kind of person. To hear him say that to me, I was like,
Oh,
I said, I get you, Johnny. I get
yeah.
you. And I said, I'm glad they're on my side, so.
Totally. Now, I cannot go without hearing Three Little Birds and not thinking of you. With anytime that song comes on, Shane Victorino pops into my head. How did that come about? Why was that your go-to walk-up?
It was funny because I drugged Buffalo Soldier, which was, what I used in Philly all those years, and I wanted to keep the tradition and keep it going when I went to Boston. But it actually happened about 2 days before the All-Star break. I just so happened to be driving to the park that day, and my dad called me, and that was his ringtone. Oh. And it rang in my car, and I was just like, man, this is such a catchy little, vibe. Like, I mean, of course, I love Bob already, but I was like, man, I think this could vibe right, and the energy could be good. It's just if you chorus correctly, and at that time we had all of 15 or 20 seconds, so you had to kind of figure out that right timing.
Right.
But I remember I played it one day, and my first at bat went up there, and I was like, it's a little different, different song, because I'm so used to the Buffalo Soldier, and I knew it was kind of like this rhythm thing for me to get in the box, and it all became part of the process. And understanding that, and when I heard the song, and by my second or third at bat, when the song would get cut off at the moment, I heard little pockets of fans like continue to sing the song, and I was like, man, and I said to myself, how cool could this be one day to have the host, and really by the time the All-Star break came along, the song was getting cut off, and it was being sung amongst the fans, and it became this phenomenon. And I think that, forever will tie that city. I mean, as I said, I retired it there, I left it there, and I hope it's a part of that city forever.
100%.
So it's definitely a song that resonates in my heart every time I hear it as well.
Now, you had a lot of individual accomplishments in your career. 3 Gold Gloves. I did a little research. 3 Gold Gloves, 2 All-Star, 4. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to.
Come on, Johnny. You're
going to have to call Wikipedia and take up that up with that.
See, don't believe in Wikipedia, everybody. Okay.
Okay, 4 Gold Gloves, 2 All-Star, Branch Rickey, Lou Gehrig. A lot of awards, but you really are known as a guy who won. You won 2 World Series. That's not easy to do. I mean, only 1 out of 30 teams wins the World Series. You played how many years? 13 years, something like that, right? 12, 13 years. Yes. And you won 2 World Series. I know Victorino means winner in Hawaiian. I understand that's true. But what is it about you that are you just blessed? Are you lucky? Or is there something about you that enabled you to win 2 World Series? I know when you won the Gold Gloves. You're quite a fast fellow. But
I think it's everything, John. It's luck. It's preparation. It's I tell people luck. I think luck is a to me a phrase of 2 words. It's opportunity and preparation. Luck meaning that I was prepared when my opportunity presented myself, and I when opportunity presented myself, I was prepared. So when I look at that kind of stuff, I say luck, because so many things got to go right. Guys got to get hurt. Someone's got to and in my career, no one really counted me as the guy. No one wanted to But I think along the way, failure as a young kid, failure as a kid when I was, I learned, I just did a story about my dad because people wanted me to tell the story, going back a little bit off, but about, it kind of, works together. It's an opportunity to talk about my dad, tell my story about my dad. And I basically said, people have this vision of our family that we have so much to, but I grew up basically in my grandma's property. And I went back to my grandma's property, and my grandma's property sat on a field that I basically walked out to, and I told the guy doing an interview, this was my sports. Whatever sport was going on in that field, I was participating in, whether it be soccer, whether it be basketball, whether it be tennis, whether it be, baseball, whether it be football, whether it just be running sprints with a bunch of people. That was my backyard. And I look at today's athletes, and I look at these kids and these parents, it's like, oh, you got to play one sport. You got to do this. It's that kind of stuff that I look at, that when I was a young kid, my parents put me out there to play sports, to become a better person, to become later on down the road, to suffer what I was suffering in ADHD as a kid, to blow my energy, to find ways to get me to slow down at night. That's the kind of perspective where I look at this and I say to myself, that's how I won. All the things that I learned through the process of failure. Like, I never won a championship as a kid in high school. I graduated 43 kids out of my high school. Guys, I grew up in the middle of the ocean, in Hawaii. Nobody thought this was possible. So that's when I talk about winning. That's all calculated to winning. Not playing 100 baseball games, not playing travel soccer, not playing no, I was a kid. My mom and dad allowed me to be a kid. And the village that I, was surrounded by with my aunties and uncles and my upbringing, that's what allowed me to be the winner. And so when you ask that, John, it's simple. Like, let kids be kids nowadays, parents. Like, don't sucker them into, you got to do this, this, and this. Well, you know why? You're paying someone's bill, people. You know what I mean? It's simple. That person does this as a career. They think they got all the answers. Like, let your kids be kids, whatever it is. Let them play 10 sports. I don't care. I think that's what all calculated to why I went into a city like Philadelphia, why I was able to go into a city like Boston and be myself, because it never changed of who I am. It allowed me to be the person that I am since I was a kid.
Brent in the comments said, Shane, you are the man. Boston loves you. And following that up, do you have a teammate that you connected with over, the decade plus that you were in the majors that to this day has just made such a huge influence on your life?
J-Ro, Jimmy Rollins, my big brother. And but again, along the way, I don't ever discredit all the opportunity that I got to play with guys. But J-Ro was the one that he gave me one big phrase. And this was a phrase that I will always remember. He told me this early in my career. I had first gotten up and we were, obviously he was switch hitter, same size guy. We kind of was a, similar player. And I said to myself, I'm going to learn from this guy. I remember 2003 as a Rule 5 kid. They came in, it was San Diego, and I remember this kid with dreads and watching him just be so smooth at shortstop. And then, fast forward a year and a half, 2 years later to get the opportunity to be around him. Like, I was in awe. I just remember the dreads. Like, I was like, dude, or he had his hair braids. And I was like, dude, who was this kid? I want to be like him someday because he was flashy. He was great. He was energetic. And he told me this about 2 years into my thing. And I said, J-Ro, they want me to go the other way. They want me to be this hitter that hits the ball away from the left side. He goes, Shane, I'm going to tell you this. If you were to walk and your career were to end today and you had to walk out those doors and you open those doors, how would you want to go out? I said, and he said, there's two ways. Your way and what you think is going to make you the best you, or their way. And that's meaning the organization and the way they want you to be. And I said, J-Ro, my way, of course. And he said, well, go do what's going to make you the best Shane. And the rest was history. So that always resonated to me. I mean, I got to do a lot of great things with that big brother of mine, and we still continue to text each other each and every day through the whole playoffs we did. But he was the one guy that taught me. But that's the part I was willing to learn as a younger player, a guy that I looked up to. And I feel like today, maybe I'm wrong. As I said, I don't understand. I'm not around the game enough. But I feel like that perception of learning from the veteran guy who had done it in front of you. And, Mookie Betts did an article just when I retired about how I played such a big influence. And I showed my mom, and I said, Mom and Dad, this is my biggest moment of my career. And I said, I got one of the greatest players in the game talking about how I made such an impact on his life and continue to make an impact on to make him a better player. And I said, it ain't about the dollar sign. It's about passing what someone did to me, and I pass it on to a guy like Mookie. And I hope Mookie does for 10 other players and everybody else. But that's about what the game should be about. And I think that's the part where sometimes I'm still trying to understand where it fits in the game today.
That's a great story about Jimmy Rollins and very wise advice. Don't always listen to your bosses. I hope my boss is not listening now, but I think that is very, very sage advice. So good for you.
I mean, it's risky. I mean, I took a risk, but
the risk shot.
I mean, it was a risk anyway,
Exactly. Now, you talk fondly of your Dodger years, and you actually were with the Dodgers 3 times, once at the end when you were established star player, but twice early on. I think they exposed you on the Rule 5 twice.
Yes,
you talk fondly of it, though. So you feel good about the handling of the Dodgers. Now, they kind of missed the boat because you became a star player in a sense, but is it now looking back on it, do you understand why they did it? I mean, obviously you're not a huge guy. Maybe that had some impact in there.
I'll never understand, John. Everybody who counted me out, I'll never understand why somebody would count me out. And that's not saying it in a way, but that's just how you have to be in this profession, at this level, when you're trying to compete. I told this somebody the other day at actually lunch, and I said at our level, 90% of us are the same. Okay, one guy might be faster, one guy might more have power, one guy might throw harder. At the end of the day, we're all in the 90%. We're all talented. We all have our own talents. It's how do you perfect your talent and staying in my lane? Okay, I can tell you in the lineup in Philly, nobody wanted to face J-Ro in his MVP year. Nobody wanted to face Chase Utley. Nobody wanted to face Ryan Howard. So there was a little guy in the middle that everybody wanted to go after. Well, little did I know that's the biggest fight, the cat that's going to bring up the biggest fight. So that's the perspective, understanding. That was my lane. Make it harder. Go up there and grind in that bat out. Make this pitcher work, because now Chase gets to go up there. This guy's gassed on the mound. He's going to make a mistake. And then we're up 2-0 or we're up 1-0. I mean, that's the part where I say, is that perspective looked at in the game? I don't even know anymore, because I try to understand it just sitting on the couch. I gave you an example last night, first and second. 100% I'm squaring around if I'm Chris Taylor. Not no respect to Chris Taylor, but hey, analytics might not say that, so he's perceived, or he's born to play the game that way. I just think in my heart, by the numbers, by being in that position, yes, because I have trust in the guy. All he's got to do is put the ball in play. It's 1-0. But as I said, it worked out. Analytics won again, so we're going to lose that fight.
Game analytics. Obviously, you still are very passionate about the game. It would be hard not to be when that's been your life for so long. Do you have any thoughts about going back, coaching, mentoring, doing anything involved?
I do. You know, truthfully, Jenny, it's easier from right now, just being from the outside looking and texting the guys via text, you know, just keeping them going in the right direction mentally and just giving them thoughts about what I was thinking or what might have came up in my experience in this time of being, you know, where an example, Matt Stairs in 2008 comes up to me finally in Tampa Bay and he sits down game one. He looks at me on the bench. He goes, "Hey, you nervous yet?" I said, "Matty, this is just another game." Truthfully, I don't know if I'm just cold-hearted or I just don't have that kind of, it's in my blood, but it never strayed. No matter what game it was, I played a game like it's my last. Like, I'm going to go out there and give you my heart, and that's all you're going to get. I don't care if I win or lose, but, I mean, yes, winning became part of the, you know, the ingredient.
Yeah.
Shane, first of all, I want to ask you, is there a way to get that shirt? Because I'm still looking at you, and I love that shirt. I mean, I know
I'm going to have to get some made. I knew everybody was going to love it. This is probably the second time. Actually, the first time I wore it was for my Christmas cards that I sent out to everybody. And the responses I got were like, "Can I get one? Can I?" So first of all, I better go and trademark this thing. I better be smart and go cover that. And then I need to go get some made. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you are the actual flying Hawaiian, and I don't fly, and I'm not Hawaiian, but I have been Hawaiian. I'd like to know how you get that shirt. You'll have to, when you figure out how you can.
When I get them done, I will make sure you guys get some for sure. A lot of them.
Absolutely.
So.
Where do the Red Sox, if they finish this off, whether they win in 4 or 5, whatever, they won 108 games. Where do you think they rank in terms of history? This team.
How do you disagree with that not being history? You won, you know, the most game in a storied franchise like the Boston Red Sox. I mean, you know, to have the most wins in a season. I remember we did that in Philly when we won 102 games. It was like this big hurrah. Unfortunately, we didn't go to World Series. We got eliminated in Game 5 against St. Louis, who, you know, ran into a hotter team. So people don't understand and how it all works at this time of year. It's about the right team playing the right baseball, minimizing your mistakes, executing by to me, instinct. Understanding that Pedro Baez, nothing against, I'm going to give a scenario, and this is one that sits in me. As a hitter, I sat there and I go, he struck out the first 2 guys, and I said, I do not want to face this guy. And I'm a hitter that probably would have come up in that scenario going, watch what he just did to the 2 guys in front of me and just, you know, but again, mind tricking myself going, man, he just mowed these 2 guys down. Now I got to go up there and try to face this, like with 2 outs. I mean, I'm even more in the hole. But, you know, and that's the part again. It's I'm not talking about, I'm bringing examples, and I want to bring examples to the table because I'm trying to understand, and I want answers for myself because I'm thinking outside a whole different box as an athlete being in that position going, I do not want to face Baez in this situation after he just mowed these 2 guys as a switch hitter, as a left-handed hitter. And then you bring in, you know, Alex Wood, and I'm not judging. I'm trying to understand. And until someone explains it to me correctly, I'm going with Baez because that guy just mowed 2 guys down. I don't care. I told my agent, John Boggs, again this morning, like, I don't care if it's a righty, lefty, it's Babe Ruth, or just look at what the heart of what happened. And as a hitter, I'm scared. I don't want to go face that guy now because I got to try to get a hit. I can't just stick my bat out there and, you know, try to put the ball in play to drive a run in. I got to work for a hit. So, I mean, it's hard. I'm trying to learn the game, and I'm trying to understand it.
Was there a pitcher out there that you just hated facing? That just, like, you couldn't get
John Smoltz. I hated John Smoltz. And why I hated John Smoltz? Because he put fear in me. You know, and fear meaning that he was not afraid to come in. He was not – and all those guys back in the day. I'll give you an example of Randy Johnson. I had 2 homers off of him in Philly. He went to dinner the next night, that same night with John Lieber. John Lieber comes back the next day in the locker room. First thing he passes by me, he goes, "Hey, Vic, I just want to let you know I had dinner with Randy last night. He told you that the next time you face him, the outcome is going to be different." And I was like, "Oh, okay, John. Like, I was just trying to do my job." He's like, "Well, he just wanted me to tell you, and that was it." And I was like, "Okay." So the next time I got in the box against Randy Johnson, if I didn't stand to the back of the box, because, you know, it was a respect factor going, Randy Johnson, yes, he probably doesn't like this young kid hitting 2 homers off of him, and he probably is going to make it known the next time we play him because that's how you looked at the game. Yep. It wasn't about fear. It was about mental warfare. It's about psychological warfare, and I think that's the part of the game that I understand. It's like, if you're going to talk, like, make it psychological. Make it to where you're trying to beat the opponent mentally, not because you're trying to talk about the other guy and make him worse than what he is. You know what I mean? And it put fear in me. So guys like that I went into the box going, okay, well, they're not afraid to pitch in. They're not afraid to make a mistake. And if they do, they're just pitching their game. They're not. That was the guys I feared the most in my career.
I don't even, should Lieber have even gone to lunch or dinner with him? I don't know if you're the opposing guy going to lunch or dinner with a scary guy on the other team. I don't know. That's a question.
Hey, but that's part of the game. That's friendship. That's, years of baseball. That's, you go do that. When you're on the field, we're enemies. But when we're off the field, a lot of us are friends. We're going to go out to dinners, and I don't care. That's just part of the brotherhood. And I think that's what I try to figure out now on some of the stuff I see in the field. It's like, do you guys show love for another off the field? Is it, that close? I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the game, as I said. I'm trying to figure out and learn. But until I understand it, until I get back into it, until maybe I should understand a little bit more, I love looking from the outside in and just kind of understanding that, hey, I was lucky. I got to play in a game also where technology and advancement of this kind of stuff wasn't making my game such a – I can promise you in all my stolen bases in my career, I popped off a second base. And if a guy kept the tag on, I'd probably have 0 stolen bases because it's almost humanly impossible to go at that speed, slide into a bag, stick on it. You're creating things and opportunities for guys to hurt themselves. I don't get it, John. I mean,
I don't get that one either.
I'm trying to figure out what makes the most sense. Like,
I don't know about the holding the tag on thing. I think that's kind of silly. I don't know. I'm not in favor of that. You were on powerhouse teams in Philly, not only 2008, but 09, 10 was a really good team. All the teams were excellent. That 13 Boston team, Boston had come off a bad season in 12, which they had to have a fire sale. Ended up winning in 13. Did you guys think you were going to win the World Series? When you got to spring training, were you thinking, hey, we're going to win the World Series, or, I'm happy to be here. It's nice, a new team and all that? I mean,
I went out that way. That was my mentality every year, my friend. I mean,
really?
I never went into a season saying, and on the flip side, though, blessedly so, I was in position to be on teams that I could actually walk in there and go, yes, we have a chance. We are a bunch of bad dudes that can play the game. But again, I also played on teams that, how can I say this without, with being politically, but played the game I felt like correctly. Mm-hmm. Where a bunt needed to be done, bunt the guy. If moving a guy over needs to get done, like really execute it, really. And I feel like, as I said, I'm just looking at what I've seen in the postseason so far and even the last month of the season. Because to me, that's the only time I really paid attention to really understanding the game is like, I could tell going into that last month of the season, how we were playing, the way our team was playing, how we were looking. But again, also playing on teams that I knew our roles. Going back to the role, like this was my role. My role was to be this player. I know they're going to come after me. They don't want to go after those 3 other guys. They're going to go after me. So I had to prepare myself because I was going to be the hole that everybody wanted to go after. So bring on the role. I understood my role. My role, whatever the job was at that play, I was going to try to execute my role. I wasn't going to try to be Chase Utley. I was going to try to be David Ortiz or any other player. I was trying to be myself. And I think that's the part where the game is confusing to me right now.
I think if you look at that 2013 team too, when you look at kind of the roster on paper, I mean, there was obviously, if you're in the majors, you're a talented player, but it wasn't those huge names. But there was something about that team that just clicked. And as you mentioned, whether it be the role that everyone was playing, or you look at a guy like Johnny Gomes pinch hitting and coming in and hitting homers just left and right. I mean, like things that happened that year, I just feel like it was a team chemistry and that team was really working together. And like you said, do you agree with that? I mean,
it was very much team chemistry. And also I think as what happened in the city, like the perspective of that really, I think, brought us all together. I mean, it was bigger than the game of baseball. Mm-hmm. I tell people when every night that you can walk out as a home player to see a family or a victim being honored every night as a home player, you're like, man, it got your adrenaline going. It got your heart going because you just say to yourself, man, less than a half a mile away or less than a mile away, that could have been me. And again, we're supposed to be celebrating. Like, this is supposed to be a happy time. So I think that, and as an opposing player, that plays a different toll because now the energy's in the stadium, the home team's excited because they see their hometown hero come walking on the field, throw out the first pitch. And, it was almost like an added energy that just happened naturally. But again, having the right guys, and I think we had the right mix of veteran players who understood their roles, who understood what it was. And don't get me wrong, everybody counted us out. So I think that team was just a bunch of guys that everybody counted out and said, okay, let's go. Vegas Golden Knights. Same kind of perspective of that team that everybody counted out every single night. Oh, they're just a bunch of, no, we're talented kids. Now we got excited about one another to go out there and play the game that we love. Look out because we're going to grind you out to the end. And that's how we won. I mean, that's what I think made us love in that city. I mean, I went back and the love that I got there in Boston was unbelievable. Walking around the stadium and just, you know, the Boston strong. And thank you what you did for the city. It wasn't thank you about what you did for the Red Sox. Thanks for winning the World Series. Like, thank you what you did for the city of Boston. Like, man, that's kind of stuff that becomes priceless. You know, same thing when I retired in Philly. I mean, you know, to walk around and say thank you what you did for the city of Philly. I mean, I'm blessed. You know, at the end of the day, I look at all this and, you know, that's why I say it's hard for me sometimes to stay so far away from the game. But again, it's until I understand where the analytic and where everything is going and I can really insert myself to be the biggest. I'd rather sit on the outside and with technology today, you can connect, you communicate, you can make guys better. I mean, I can tell an opposing team what it looks like in how you play right field. I mean, you know, even the home player. Why do you think Mookie Betts, not saying, well, I'm saying he's the reason why, but why do you think he plays as shallow as he does? Well, because Mookie, I told you an example. Like, you got to learn, and you watch him every night, and you as a player, you feel so like, you know, so it makes it hungry. It makes me want to get back in the game to teach that, not the analytic. It's about this perspective of I've done it. I've sat out there. Like, this is what you need to do. This is an edge that you already have. The guy in the department that's really sitting at a computer that's watching it launch, he hasn't sat out there when it's, you know, 100 degrees and you're soaking wet and you know, you've played 15 games in a row and you can barely keep your eyes open and your body's tired and you're not moving like you did when you're fresh. I mean, does that all go into an analytical department? I don't know. You know, I'm trying to figure out that myself.
You know, I'm going to go off the board here with this question. You're from Maui. You're now living in Las Vegas, the two great tourist capitals of the country, probably. What is it? I've been to Las Vegas. I mean, we're going back for the winter meeting. How does somebody how do you pick Las Vegas? How do you pick Las Vegas to live? I think their tax situation's pretty good, but
well, that was a nice little positive.
Not bad. But you live in the Bellagio? Or are you in like room the penthouse of the Bellagio? Where do you live?
No, I'm just in my little courtyard in my house, just a little house, just
little
enjoying
house.
myself being a dad.
I'm
not on the penthouse in Bellagio. We stay, you know what's funny? Us Las Vegans, we live here, who make this home. A lot of us stay far away from that little tourist destination that we call the Las Vegas Strip. You know, there's so much to do in this city. It's growing so fast and so rapidly. And, you know, I always tell people the reason why I moved here was, one, I met my wife when I was playing here in 2003, and she was living here. And, you know, also we made home while I was playing, tax purposes. But I'm at that point now where my kids are, you know, embedded in their activities. And, you know, I want them to, you know, really get, you know, I don't want to give them that shell shock. I drug them around enough while I was playing. So, you know, it's time for me to make the change and come back here. But someday I'll end up back home in that beautiful place of Maui. But, you know, as I said, along with my parents and my family and everybody's doing well and the health's good, hey, I can get away with living in Vegas because there's a lot of Hawaiians moving here too, unfortunately.
Nice.
Well, Shane, thank you so much for spending.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks, John.
Best to your family. Good luck to your dad.
Thank you. Same to you and Will. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see
right.
best. So.
Thank you. All right, John. Thanks again.
All right, Shane. Great talking to you.
Take care. Thank you.
Tuesday. Bye-bye. He's just a great guy.
Wow. He's always on. Amazing. Just a very nice fellow, very personable. He's always that way. But, of course, everything's going very well in his life. I mean, he always is on the winning team. He's a 4-time Gold Glover. I've learned I'm going to have to call Wikipedia to correct them. And knowing him, his dad, Mike Sr., will win the mayor of an island. I didn't know an island had a mayor, but okay.
That's pretty legit.
Yeah, good for him.
That's exciting. Shane was always one of my favorites to interview in post game because he just the passion just oozes out of him. So those were always fun interviews. So going back before we get our next guest on, want to talk a little bit more about Game 1 and 2 of the World Series. Are you impressed? I know there was a lot of questions about how David Price would do. Which David Price would we see? What did you see from him? And do you feel like this is a David Price that we all expected?
Yeah, finally. Terrific game plan. I think it was a little bit overdone because he was really good in some situations that didn't really count as a playoff. Game 163 at Texas. Price threw a shutout. That was one of the biggest games he ever pitched. So I think it was a little overdone, but I think he looks relieved. I'm sure he feels relieved. And that's David Price. I mean, this is how you get that $217 million contract. Very talented guy and very good fellow. And I'm glad that he was able to put it together for his own sake.
I'm sure that was a good feeling. We are ready to welcome in our next guest. We have Dodgers World Series great Ron Cey, 17-year career, mostly with the Dodgers. So I know maybe he'll have a little different perspective than Shane just did. 6-time All-Star, World Series champ, MVP, Ron, I think you are joining us. Hello.
I am here.
How are you?
Can you see me?
We can see you. John, can you see Ron?
I can't see John.
I can see Ron.
All right.
He looks like he always looked, like a Dodger champion. I see him.
Well, thank you very much. We're certainly proud that the Dodgers are back in the World Series. It's taken 31 years to get back a year ago, and so we're pleased to be back in it. The results haven't been quite in our favor at this point in time, but there's still a few games to be played.
You have plenty of time to turn things around. What have you seen from the Dodgers so far?
Not much, honestly. I think the cold weather has affected them a little bit. They just haven't hit very well, and that is you got to give credit to the Red Sox. They've played very well. They're like a little bit of a old school team, with the fact that they have pretty much their position players out there every day. And we know who our players are, but we don't know where they're playing every night. So it's a new experience every night for you.
Yeah, it's a little different from your team, where you had third, you had Russell at short, you had Lopes at second, you had Garvey at first, Yeager catcher. Everybody played the same position. Everybody knew what they're doing. It's a different era today. What do you recall? Now, you were in a situation 2 games down, 81 World Series.
Yes.
You guys came back to do it. What do you recall about your ability to come back and the actual comeback? What kind of details can you fill us in on there on how to do it?
I just think that our experience helped us a great deal. This was our 4th World Series, and pretty much the nucleus of all those players was still intact. We had the longest running infield in Major League history, and by fact, most successful infield in Major League history. Not the greatest infield of all time, but and we also had the first 30 home run foursome that was still there.
Nice.
Dusty Baker, Steve Garvey, Reggie Smith, and myself. So we had a lot of history there. Plus, I think when I analyzed it even a little bit further, I think all but one member of our team was a multiple All-Star, and that's saying quite a bit. And so we did have a great club. We had a great run together. I think that the difference, we just had to try and take control. I don't think we were, fretting over the fact that we lost the first 2 games, but we knew the task at hand. And so we went after game 3. We were able to pull that out. It was a tough 1-run game. The next day was a seesaw battle back and forth, another 1-run game. And then in game 5, we won our 3rd straight 1-run game. And now we're headed back to New York, and we're hoping that we can get this over as fast as possible. And that happened in game 6. It was a 9-2 rout, and the 4 infielders played their last game in that series, and they were the first 4 hitters in the lineup that night. Call it what you want. It was pretty good karma, and so we brought the World Championship back to Los Angeles.
How much does playing at home, the home field advantage, play into, especially with a World Series game, when the energy and the atmosphere and just the comfort level and the weather, the temperature, as you just mentioned, it was freezing in Boston. How much does that play into how a team mentally prepares for the game? And
well, I think I think that the fact that you mentioned the weather is probably the one thing that really makes you feel like you have an advantage. And I think when you play at home, and it may not be just the weather, I think the fact that, we had such great fan support during our era of baseball. We were the first team in Major League history to take the attendance over 3 million. So by fact, they do live in the house that we built a long time ago. we were very fortunate to have a great relationship with our fan base, and they treated us like family, and they knew us. We were household names for 8.5 years, and you had a product that if we were playing in today's game where you have 3 divisional winners and 2 wildcard teams, we would have been in the playoffs every single year. So it's changed a great deal, but winners only went forward back then. Guys who get injured, you got to try to get over this as fast as possible. Today, you have a little bit of you got a wiggle room in there, but it's changed all the way around. And from a financial standpoint, it's been a boon to baseball, adding these 2 wild card games, all the divisional champions, keeping their teams that may have a chance to be one of those wild card teams in the race in September. Brilliant idea way back. And, we have so many overlapping professional sports and collegiate sports that if your team's not, in the running in September, they're gonna watch something else. So it's been a terrific run, and baseball has been the beneficiary.
You mentioned playing through injury and playing through pain. I think it was in that 81 World Series, wasn't it, where Goose Gossage threw that errant fastball and hit you right in the ear flap, and you were motionless on the ground. I mean, I'm old enough that I remember it quite well. I remember the incident. I don't remember exactly what game it was, but I think it was 81. What do you remember from that? And I think
what are you talking about?
When you got hit in the head by the Gossage.
Are you sure about that?
Very good. You're good.
Thank you.
Did you miss it?
It was game 5, and it was the bottom of the 8th inning.
Game 5, the 81. Game 6, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, how did you do that? I mean, some people didn't think you were going to live through that.
Yeah, my wife thought I was dead.
Oh my gosh.
What do you remember from? I was really fortunate. There have been others who have been hit in that area, and Dickie Thon, I remember, who's closer to my ear than Billy Canigliaro was. But if you remember what happened to those 2 fine players, it wasn't very sweet after that. They suffered tremendously. The good thing about all of that, even though I had a concussion and I was kind of dizzy for at least a month and probably a few more months since I've gotten older as well. But the protocol would have had me sitting down. And it was left up to me. And so I remember when I got there, I came a day late because I had to go back through Sentinella Hospital and take all the tests over again and get cleared. And then they basically left it up to me. And we had a cold out, if you will, the day that the 6th game was scheduled. So it was delayed a day, and that helped me a great deal. And so when I went to the park the next day, Lasorda was like one of my dogs. He was shadowing me the entire time. And he said, "How do you feel?" "I feel great. Just let me go out here and get my work done." And this happened all the way up until batting practice. And I finally had to kick him out. I said, "Look, I got a new ear flap. I gotta try to get used to this. I gotta see if I'm okay." And he says, "Well, the 4th spot's left open in the lineup." And I said, "I know. And if you leave me alone, I can probably get to you pretty soon." And so when I went in after batting practice, there was a ton of reporters in the locker room at Yankee Stadium. And I just poked my head through the door and gave him a thumbs up and said, "Let's go." So
thumbs up, though, but you said you were dizzy for a month. So
yeah, I was.
2 days later, you were dizzy.
I've been dizzy for about 30 years after that, too.
30 years, okay. But so 2 days later, you were certainly dizzy. How'd you play that day, being dizzy and all?
Well, listen, I went through my protocol, and I wouldn't have put the team in jeopardy nor myself, not for a minute. And I think it was the bottom of the 5th inning, I went back out after I had hit and drove in our run that put us ahead for good. with a base hit to center field, and then we tacked on some more runs. And so we were kind of cruising along at that point. And we added some more runs a little bit later, but in that bottom of the fifth inning, the last out, there was a little humpback liner hit to me. And it was an easy catch, but the ball came at me like an old fuzzy tennis ball. So I said, okay. And this had come after when I had run from first to third on a base hit by Dusty Baker in that same inning. And then Pedro Guerrero hit a triple to the gap. And during that run from first to third, I just felt a little funny. And then I was confirmed when I saw that ball hit to me that didn't look like a baseball. And I decided that I was going to turn it over. And I said, I'm not gonna carry this. I'm not gonna have a play come up and then me be the one that messed this thing up. So I turned it over to Darryl Thomas, and Steve Howe got the last fly ball to Kenny Landreau in center field, and that was it.
Amazing. And you have total recall even after being hit in the head. That's the incredible thing. You must have kind of a hard head. I mean, I don't want to put it that way, but
well, thank you very much. But if you want to know what I did last Thursday, don't ask me.
Very good.
So you mentioned how the game changed since you've been involved. Do you like the way that the game is played these days? We just had Shane Victorino on here, and he had some mixed feelings on some of the analytics and the way that the game is going.
Self-admission is, I'm an old school guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've worked for the Dodgers in this capacity that I have for the last 22 years. I came on at the end of the O'Malley era. And there's a lot of things that, I said, listen, I don't know a lot about this. I have to be fair. I have to give it a chance. And I've given it a chance. I've watched it and not to the point where I'm saying, I'm going through all these numbers every single day. I'm not. I'm just using my experience, what I've seen, how they do it, how they go about it. And I asked Sandy Koufax earlier, I think it was either this year or last, I said, are you going to get used to this new way that we're playing baseball? And he says, never. And so I think, yeah, cool, but Sandy's also, he understands there's change. And change is inevitable. It just doesn't always have to be, great, and I think there's lots of questions. I was looking at this the other day, and I said, there's half the teams are above the line and the other half are below the line. And everybody has information. They have all the same data that everybody else has. As I'm told, they pay for it. Mm-hmm. And yet you have teams that are really struggling, and Baltimore loses 100 and some games this year. What does that say about analytics over there? I mean, aren't the players able to perform? I mean, the analytics are supposed to tell you who plays today and who doesn't. And so I suppose the people who are winning are saying this is wonderful.
Right.
Okay, so I haven't got a complete lock on it yet. I think some of the defensive shifts have created a monster for the players because they're just too stubborn to push the ball the other way. I am absolutely mindless on this. I have no way to figure out why these guys cannot go the other way. I think the club that I played with for all those years, we had guys who could handle the bat. We actually hit and run a few times and pushed the ball the other way and hit behind runners. And I think being able to handle the bat, and especially when now pitching is getting a little bit cocky because they're playing the defense to pull, and yet they're still pitching them away at times. And this is like a cookie out there. Just go ahead and just punch it over to the other side. I think we would have put a dent in how they would have played our team in particular, and probably a lot of other teams too. I just have a hard time buying into all these crazy shifts. Plus, I can also tell you this, that I did not play for play with a top-notch pitcher who wanted to play with the shift. They wanted to be able to use both sides of the plate and go in and out and up and down.
Well, yeah, to get back to your old school and get back to the old days a little bit, talking about that infield, and I agree, it's the most successful infield of all time and together the longest. I don't know if you could name what you think is the best infield of all time if it's not your infield. But what can you tell us about the other guys that maybe we don't know so much? I mean, you lived together with them, Russell and Lopes and Garvey, for, I don't know, was it a decade or more? Did you guys all get along? What was it like?
It's like having four brothers. I mean, what are you going to do? Do you think we're going to just, not beat each other up every once in a while? I mean, we were just as dysfunctional as any other group of guys that were out there. But what we had was a camaraderie, and we had a great deal of confidence in each other that melded every day that we went out there. You didn't have to worry about whether somebody was going to come with you on a shift. You knew that we were in sync, and there's a cohesiveness that goes with that, which I think also analytics don't tell you about. There is an emotional side to it. I really believe that the game upstairs is a robotic, computerized game, and the one downstairs is the real game. Mm-hmm. And you have to try and combine this two together to make it work. And there's no experience upstairs when you're talking about the young people who crunch the numbers and put them together. There's none. Downstairs, there's all kinds of baseball experience. So there has to be a friction of some kind. And, look, we're fortunate that it's probably working for us as well as it's working for anybody else. Whether it's the answer, I can't tell you, but it's the way that we're going to play baseball for a while. I know that. And I believe also that it is going to have an impact on player salaries, and not going up, but going down. And you look at it from our standpoint, where we have a bunch of guys now that were full-time players a year ago, and now they're part-time players. Mm-hmm. And so you can't go too far out on a contract if you're only getting half the performance. And so I think that, especially with our younger people, which we have under control, that you're going to see in a few more years, you're going to start to see what kind of contracts. And I've not heard anyone else talk about this. And I've talked about this 3 times, I think, on 3 different shows just like this. And I really think it's going to happen. I think maybe they fell onto something that now, when you look at arbitration, which compares time and numbers, that you're going to say, well, here's a guy who had 39 home runs, but he only hit 23 the next year, or he only hit 17. You can't be the 39 home run guy, and you may not be the 17 home run, so you're probably somewhere in the middle. So I don't know. I'm throwing a lot of stuff around, but I do believe that there's going to be an impact of some kind.
John, I think you have your next story right now.
I know.
Contract. I mean, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
I think, well, it already started last winter when they certainly, had it affect some contracts. They decided the home runs were not that valuable. There were a lot of guys hit 30 home runs. They said, well, a lot of guys can do it. And now we see starting pitchers going 4 innings, 5 innings, maybe even less, 3 innings or 2. And they're going to say, why are we paying $35 million to a starting pitcher? And
there you go. There you go. You're right. I mean, you're starting pitching. Look, name me somebody else other than David Price in, say, the last 2 series that pitched past the 5th inning. Okay, I mean, there might be a couple, but I mean, the rest of it, guys are handing it over in the 3rd inning, the 4th inning. You see that you're using 7 or 8 pitchers in the game. Boston, even though Price pitched great last night, and certainly is starting to overcome some of his absolutely horrible history of postseason play results. But you saw gas in the 7th inning, more gas in the 8th inning, and then you get to the closer, Kimbrel. You saw 4 pitchers, and they were going to strangle you right there. They weren't going to let you have an opportunity to think that you could back in the game. And I think that that's still kind of old school, 6-1-1-1, meaning over the last 10 years. But if you can I think they're hoping for that kind of a performance. But I don't think that the leash is going to let it out too long. You've seen that guys are coming out in the 2nd inning. Sometimes they get a couple guys on base and they just bullpen it to death. So here we are. And so, like you said, as an example, Clayton Kershaw, highest paid pitcher in the game, did not win 10 games this year. And he's had a history of being injured the last 3 years. So, I believe he can opt out this year. It will be interesting to see what happens and then what happens with his decision as to what to do. But I would say that that's a pretty penny to pay for 9 wins, wouldn't you?
I would say so.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think when you just look at it from a real rational point of view, this is what's going to happen. I can't help. I mean, you can't pay that guy for that. You just can't. You can't do it.
Right. I mean, you think the money would even out. They would just pay the relievers more or something else, but maybe not. Maybe they'll figure out a way to. We
may have to change the rules for a pitcher that has to pick up a win pitching 5 innings if you're going to dramatically make it, because they say they don't care about wins anymore. It's more about whip and all this other stuff that's added in there. But the idea is that if you're going to only allow your starter to go 3 innings, he'll never qualify for a win.
Right.
Okay. So I don't know. I mean, these are all crazy thoughts and ideas, but they're changing the game, and we're the ones who are trying to respond to the changes.
I want to ask you one more question, unrelated, since we have you on, and we had on before Shane Victorino, who has also a great nickname, the Flying Hawaiian. Now, your nickname may not be quite as flattering. I don't know what you thought of it. Where did you come up? Where did you get the nickname the Penguin?
Do you think that I called myself the Penguin? I think I just made that up.
I didn't mean to put it that way.
Actually, my baseball coach at Washington State University, he started calling me the Penguin, and then when I signed 2 years later, Tom Lasorda decided that he was going to start calling me the Penguin. And he takes all the credit for the nickname Penguin, but he wasn't the originator. And when he gets out of line every once in a while, I have to remind him that, no, you weren't responsible for the nickname. You were the copycat.
Did you like it? Did you hate the nickname?
Oh, I thought it was great. I did.
Okay.
The response was, I think in the beginning, I had a nickname in high school too for playing football, and they called me Scooter. And I think in the beginning I'm saying, geez, is that a compliment or are they trying to make fun of me? And so I realized the second time around that it was, a friendly thing. Okay. And so with the way that the kids responded and would call me, hey, Penguin, or Mr. Penguin, or whatever it was, they would always call me by my nickname above my name. And so I felt that was a good thing. And I didn't mind it at all.
Well, Ron, the Penguin, thank you so much for joining us here.
Jen, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it very much. John, thank you. Even though I can't see you, I can hear you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Most successful infield ever and longest running, so give him credit.
Bravo, bravo. That 2 great guests tonight. I think we crushed tonight's show, John.
Awesome. I think we should pat ourselves on the back for that. Very good.
Good job, guys. Now, enjoy. I know you're going out to LA to go watch Fancred, so good luck with that, and hopefully it's a good game. I mean, that's all we want, right?
Let's make it an interesting series. I'm not rooting one way or the other, but we like an interesting series.
Either.
I don't know about you,
but I mean, you want a good series for the World Series. That's all you can ask for. So hopefully the Dodgers pick things up and we can make it exciting down the stretch.
Sounds good.
Go with that. All right. Well, thank you all for watching, participating, sending us your great comments and questions. And John, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
We'll see you next week.